Andrew and I are going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about, you guys were just having a little conversation about the industry. And we want to talk a little bit more about that and go through some mistakes that we've seen and how to avoid them.
Okay. So that is a beautiful shot of the Hollywood Bowl where the Los Angeles Philharmonic plays in the summers. And the orchestra will be back in July with a whole bunch of concerts in the bowl. Very exciting. We were there doing some recording the other day, and it's an amazing venue, an amazing place to be, and it'll be very, very exciting, very, very exciting for all of us to see people back in that venue. If anyone's put in the chat if you had a chance to go to the Hollywood Bowl, I do recommend if you come to Los Angeles, go and see a concert there. And it is actually a national park. You can actually go and visit the Hollywood Bowl and just walk in there and have a look around. So if you're in LA, I really recommend that you check that out. Ripple.
All right. So we just have a few slides. I like visuals. And then we'll go through a few things, but really want this to be a conversation. So bring up questions. Let's talk about what's going on in the industry. The pandemic is, shifting. We've turned a corner and we're expecting some changes again in the industry. And so it'd be great for us to all kind of discuss that together and talk about what we're all seeing. So please be active in the chat. And welcome to everybody on Facebook. You can also put comments in our Facebook page and we'll get to those as well. So quick intro for anyone who doesn't know us yet.
My name is Andrew. I play the French horn. I'm the principal horn of the Los Angeles Philharmonic and founder of Invested Musician. On that slide, there are a few of the things that I've done. I've been fortunate enough to win seven auditions during my career and had jobs in Australia, in Germany, and now in the US. I teach at the Aspen Music Festival and School and play in the orchestra there, and teach at the Colburn School, and had the very great opportunity of recording the 3 Star Wars films that were recorded here in Los Angeles. But the really amazing experience was recording Force Awakens with John Williams. The first time Star Wars had been recorded in the United States. That was a lot of fun. So that's me. I as well as playing in the LA Phil, do a fair bit of movie stuff around the place, and then playing concerts in Europe and in Asia over summer. I'm excited to be doing a concert tour with Taiwan Connection throughout Taiwan, which will be a lot of fun. And that's pretty much my story.
All right.
Yeah.
And apologies for repeating this a little bit, but here's my background. I did an MBA at Michigan and also have an engineering and environmental master's degree. I've worked in a variety of different industries and learned a lot about organization and efficiency, productivity, obviously the financial and business side. So Andrew and I have worked together over the last, 10 years now, putting together adapting really what goes on in the business world and how we can leverage that as individuals, because in a way, musicians are self-employed if we're freelancing or teaching, and that means we're essentially business owners, and there's a lot of things we can do to improve and to increase our financial position. And the pandemic just brought that, further into light for us, and, really created the need and why we decided to join together and put this organization together and bring something like this to the industry, to the community. So that is my background. This is our amazing team. We have Dana with us here, and Ellie will be editing the videos. This is all going to be recorded. So if you're registered, you'll get a recording, I think, Friday or Saturday. So we're working on getting those out as soon as possible.
And Lila is unfortunately not with us this morning. She is shopping for succulents this morning because she is actually traveling on her way to Texas. She is the new assistant orchestra manager of the Houston Symphony. But on her way, as she was driving over there, she stopped off and had her succulents eaten by a bunch of wild boar. This
In
is a true
Arizona.
story in
Yeah.
Arizona, true story. And so she's replenishing her supply of succulents as we go. That's why she's not here today.
It's hard not to laugh, but it's a really sad situation. She really does love her plants. Um, so let's talk a little bit. We talked already a little bit, but Andrew, maybe you could share kind of what you see or what your assessment is as the pandemic is rounding a corner, and you're starting to work and get opportunities in the summer already. And what do you kind of see for the fall? And
Yeah, so there. I mean, there are some orchestras in the US. The Houston Symphony is a good example of an orchestra in the United States that actually kept working throughout the pandemic. I don't think they actually ever really shut down. But here in California, it's been more challenging for the orchestras in terms of performance. That is definitely changing now. The laphil has already announced that they will be performing in the Hollywood Bowl over the summer, which is extremely exciting for everyone, and is a really strong sign of hope in terms of the overall pandemic, but for the arts as well. So the orchestra is taking baby steps and being very careful how it comes back, but it is certainly looking that by the time the fall comes around, we will be holding auditions. Many orchestras around the country and around the world will be holding auditions. There will be a lot of work that will be taking place, and there will be a huge explosion. I have a very good friend of mine runs one of the music departments of a major performing arts venue in Australia. And what they found in Australia sort of went back to normal in November after being shut down for about 6 months. And there was an enormous explosion in the amount of concerts that were put on and the amount of audience that was coming back into the industry. So it was using that as a guide. I mean, I think when things start to come back, they'll come back pretty strongly, and there'll be a lot of activity in the industry. So what is coming to mind for me is that I really need to be prepared for that when that happens, so that I can capitalize on those opportunities. In my case, I'm doing quite a lot of solo playing over the summer, which 6 months ago probably wasn't going to be expected. But I'll spend a fair bit of time in Asia and throughout the States doing solo and chamber music stuff. So things are moving, and I need to be prepared for that. And I think for any of us who are looking to advance our freelance career or win auditions or move up in the world in terms of auditions and different jobs, now is the time to really start thinking about getting that going. Because when things start, there's going to be audition after audition. Things are going to move pretty quickly, and it's going to be very difficult to sort of start that process if we start getting going in August. So now is the time to think about really how you're going to move forward in your development and make those improvements.
yeah, and I just put a question in the chat because I we're a large group of people. It'd be great to share and discuss what you guys are also seeing in the industry. Are you seeing things starting to come back, and announcements for auditions or positions, or organizations getting ready to be live
and
again?
I would say with Aya's comment, it is interesting. There's some sporadic sort of freelance work and gigs that are coming back, and there have been orchestras that have struggled. But I think in general, the majority of the orchestras have actually protected their long term pretty well. And there are some orchestras actually that have benefited from not actually having to present stuff, and not having to they've been able to reduce the salaries of the organization and sort of save a bit of money. And in this time, a lot of the donors have actually done very well. So there is quite a lot of money for donors that that is accessible. So I think what we'll find is things will come back pretty strongly, because it's going to be driven by the fact that people want to go and see concerts. They want to see live music. They want to go out and do things. And when people feel safe to do that, I think is going to be a very strong return. So we want to be in a position to take advantage of that. And definitely the orchestras need people to fill the spots too. A lot of the orchestras have had a significant reduction in their numbers. So we want to be in a position where when those auditions hit, we can take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I think it's also really interesting to note how the industry has shifted and changed, right? So now that we went through the pandemic and there were all these different shifts in how people were delivering services or teaching or performing digitally and online, that's opened up a whole new channel of opportunity that, you really can't ignore, or you'd be amiss if you did. So there's, starting things starting to come back, but also in a different way. There's new and greater opportunity, and on some other platforms that geographically don't have the same limitations that we did before.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's going to be interesting for us is that like Sophie makes a really good point that in the UK, obviously the size of the orchestras is going to impact the amount of work that is available. But this actually gives us an opportunity that if you're thinking about creating a chamber group, or if you have an established chamber group, there are opportunities for those groups, because of this fact that venues are not opening to full capacity, full orchestration on stage in some areas. So having a chamber group that's actually functioning, that's playing at a really high level, is going to give you give you an opportunity to capitalize on those situations, and also being able to play outdoors as well. Chamber groups are very, very flexible and can move very quickly. So if you can position yourself, if you have a chamber group, that's great. We're going to have some ideas for you to to be able to capitalize on that as we go.
Yeah, and Scott and I are, yeah, mentioning some additional comments. So yeah, as part of staying, we talk a lot about like how do you adapt and thrive in change and when there's uncertainty around you. Being observant and looking around and noticing what's going on and what the trends are is definitely the first step. Recognizing where there's change and where there may be gaps in opportunity is where we can then find our own opportunities to step in, to do new projects or create and be creative about the way that we interact with the industry and with potential customers. So if you aren't already looking around and researching and reading the news and finding out what's going on, then we really encourage you to do so. You'll find a lot more opportunities that way. So with that, we kind of want to shift now into the 5 things that we've seen, well, that Andrew Moore in his career, but together we've seen a lot of musicians making some mistakes in this area, and we wanted to just kind of talk through them and what we can do as we're all getting ready for some more big changes around the corner. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay.
So these are just some ideas for you to consider when you're putting your thoughts together about developing your playing, and just having a look at where you're at in terms of your position in your career. So these are just 5 common mistakes. Obviously, we all make mistakes, and no plan that we put together is going to be perfect. But here are 5 of the ones just for us to sort of think about. So the first one is not having a strategy to reach your goals. So what I find, and I fall victim to this quite often too, is that I don't actually look 12 months out. I actually end up just sort of going week to week and trying to address what's right in front of me, without sort of planning a structure long term for things to lock into. So just an interesting exercise for us to all to think about is, if you just project forward 12 months from now, just have a think, allow yourself to think about what is your ideal scenario in 12 months. And what does that sort of feel like? What does it look like? What sort of lifestyle do you have? And then that's going to create a nice structure for us to work back. So what would 6 months in relation to that look like? So if in 12 months time you see yourself, doing a particular thing, you have a job in a major orchestra, for example. Okay, so 6 months from there, where do you need to be in order to get to that target? And then we can keep moving back. So we move from that medium-term goal to a shorter-term goal. So maybe like 3 months or a month away? Where do we need to be there to be able to funnel into the next goal? So what this is going to do is goal setting is really, really handy, because what it does is it actually creates structure for us. It gives us a direction from where to go, more so than being like, okay, if I don't get this thing in 12 months time, it's a disaster. That's not the main point. It's just to give us this direction, give us a push, and create structure for where we can go. So it gives us a focus, and a focus in our practice, because what we're going to do is over the time, what we want to do is break down, okay, so if this is my goal in a month, what are the processes that I need to have in place in order to make that happen? So if I decide in a month's time I want to do a recital, because in 3 months' time I want to take an audition and I need to get practice at performing, and in 12 months' time I want to really be successful at auditioning. So what are the processes that I need to put in place in a month's time? Well, I need to make sure that I've got the right skills that match the repertoire that I'm going to play. So I need to learn the repertoire. I need to learn the notes of that repertoire. I need to understand, what's going around the musical context of those pieces, or those excerpts. And then I need to understand what the skill set is. And once I've got these things in place, then I can apply this to my practice, and I can break this down into my practice. And this is where we talked about on Tuesday. Who was here on Tuesday? Put your hand up if you're here on Tuesday. Congratulations, very good. You all win a prize. Great. So we talked about structuring our practice and putting it into the 5-minute slots in our half-an-hour segments. Once we've got an idea of where we're going, it's going to make that process a lot easier. So the goal setting gives us a direction of where we're going, gives us focus about how we're actually getting there, and it gives us clarity about these decisions. So if my 1 month goal is to play a Strauss concerto, I don't need to spend a lot of time practicing double tonguing, because that's not something I'm going to necessarily use in that short-term goal. But I am going to need to work on my clarity of articulation, my slurs, my large intervals, all of the things that feed into that goal that's in the short term. It also gives, by goal setting, it gives us control over what we're doing. We're in control of, yes, I'm practicing this because this is where I'm going, rather than I'm just going to randomly practice something and hope that I get better. And also provides us with a good sense of motivation. If you've got a recital in a month's time, you're going to be pretty motivated to practice. So it just makes life a lot easier and gives us a bit more structure.
Yeah, and I put a question in the chat to ask how many people set goals. I bet that many of you, and I fall into this category too. I definitely set goals and think about them, but I don't do the work to create a plan to achieve them. And then sometimes I create the plan and then I just do, whatever I feel like in the moment or the day, and then a month goes by or another month, and then, the thing that I really needed and wanted to get done didn't happen. So it's important to set the goals, but it's also equally important to, put a plan in place so that we can get there and to stick to the plan, which is actually a lot harder in the moment than we may recognize. So with that, let's move to the second one, if you're ready, Andrew.
Yeah, sure. So our second mistake that I find is that we don't address the 3 pillars of our playing in an individual way. So the 3 pillars, don't worry, I'll let you know what they are. So the 3 pillars are our technical development, our musical development, and our mental development in terms of our playing. What we tend to do, and put in the chat if you're familiar with this. We've got an audition coming up, or we've got a performance coming up, and we get the call, or we see the advertisement, we get the list, and the first thing we do is we run into the practice room and start going crazy practicing the list of excerpts, going over and over, trying to figure out how to play each excerpt, and making sure that we go through those excerpts as much as we can about 4 or 6 months out from the audition. Anyone in that category? Has anyone ever done that before? Yes, congratulations, you're all normal. Very good, right? Yeah. So this was me early on in my audition career, and what I found is that by doing that, I was locking myself into that moment of my development. So my technical level was linked to the musical knowledge that I had of the excerpt and where I was mentally. So it created a really low ceiling of where I could go. I could learn those excerpts pretty well over 4 months. If I was playing excerpts every day, I would learn the notes of the excerpts pretty well. But it was anchored to my technical level that where I started. So as I got older and more successful in auditions, I discovered that the important thing was, what is the biggest, or important thing to realize was, what is the most limiting factor in auditions? The most limiting factor is my technical ability. So what I want to do is I want to spend the majority of time in my audition preparation working on expanding my circle of ability. If my ability is way beyond what I'm ever going to need to play those excerpts, then musically I'm going to be able to express what I want. So I want to spend a lot of time identifying what the technical areas of improvement that I need to make, identifying them, really establishing what the qualities are, and then expanding them. And this is something we talked about in our 5-day challenge in terms of developing our technical circle. And then musically, I want to develop that in a parallel line, right? Because if all I'm doing is playing the excerpts with the instrument, and the only time musically I'm creating my image is in relation to my instrument, I'm limiting my musical output in relation to my technical output. So what I want to do is separate those two things and get the clearest possible musical idea totally away from the instrument. So I can sing it, I can hear it in my head, I want to listen to it a lot, I want to sing through it, I want to be aware of the context, I want to get the clearest possible musical image that I can, and then apply that to the instrument. So I'm developing my technique on the instrument, musically I'm clarifying my picture. When those things are at a really high level, then I can bring them together. And that's all great in the practice room, but the other element is the mental side. And the mental side is something that's super important in auditions because it's the thing that affects us the most. And it's probably the thing that we practice the least. So when we get in, most of us, and you hear this in auditions all over the world, if you walk down a corridor of an audition, you hear people absolutely nailing excerpts in the practice room. They sound amazing. Has anyone been to an audition where it's like that? There's like 10 practice rooms, and all you hear is people just playing the daylights out of it. It sounds amazing. It's really great. And then you get into the audition and suddenly things go wrong, right? So developing our mental side to be able to deliver what we have in the practice room on stage is such a vital thing. And if we don't practice that, it's the same as any other muscle in your body, or it's the same as a skill set. If you don't develop that skill set, it's not going to be there when you're under pressure. And you're not going to be able to deliver all that work that you put in the practice room, you're not going to be able to deliver on stage. Which to me, it was really frustrating before I learned about this. Because I was sounding great in the practice room, and then I would get on stage and I would be like, it would fall apart. And that's the mental side. So understanding how to practice, how to engage your brain, and then how to focus, stay in the moment, and deliver the best results on stage is a really important skill for us to think about and consider. I know for my LA Phil audition, I walked down the corridor and I heard all these great horn players in the dressing rooms. They all sounded amazing. And I was like, oh my goodness, why am I even here? Like, I'm not going to win this audition. But for me, fortunately, I have a really, really structured practice plan for auditions and performances, and a really, really clear plan on the day. And I remind myself, just stick to the plan. And this is what happens in auditions and performances, is that people don't tend to stick to the plan. They either don't have a plan, in which case the plan is random. Because if you don't have a plan, you have a plan. That's the plan. The plan is you don't have a plan. Whether you like it or not, you have a plan. So you want to make sure that your plan is really, really good and it's going to deliver you what you want on the performances. So having a plan and sticking to the plan is really important. Not only does it help us in the moment of the audition or the performance, but it gives us information that we can then plug into that plan and adjust the plan to improve it for the next time. So every performance and every audition that I do, I take notes on. Sometimes, I write them down. For auditions, I definitely would write them down. But for performances, I take mental notes. Oh, I tried this as part of my plan on this performance. This worked or this didn't work. okay, I need to adjust it, or I need to reinforce it. So this is an important thing in our practice as well as in our performance, to focus on the reflection part of what we do. So when we play something, great, you do as well as you can in the performance, then you want to review, okay, so what actually happened? What happened that was intentional, that you wanted to make happen? What happened that wasn't intentional? You want to review that, and then you can actually then work out, okay, now what am I going to reinforce for next time? What are the things that I want to change? What are the things I want to do more of? And then we keep refining the process. So for me, I have a very clear mental strategy with my pre-concert routine. I have a centering routine that helps to make me really focus for performances. I go through that centering routine in the dressing room before the concert and when I'm on stage before the concert. And I really make sure that I'm very clear musically what I want to do in my mind. And physically, I have a very stable routine in terms of warm-up routine before the performance. And then I have to keep reminding myself, my key to tie everything together, and for anyone who's heard any of my talking before, you'll recognize this. So I poke myself in the ribs. And by poking myself in the ribs, it reminds me I have to breathe. And breathing is my trigger to allow my plan to take place. So I go through my mental routine, my centering routine. When I get on stage, I poke myself in the ribs and I'm reminding myself we have to breathe well. If I breathe well, that solves the majority of my problems, except as we know, as brass and wind players, what's the first thing that goes in performance when you're nervous? You're breathing. Yes, so that's why it's even more important that I have a physical cue to remind me. So having a plan and remembering it's okay not to have a perfect plan. And this is what many of us find. We don't organize a plan, we don't decide on a plan because we're scared that the plan isn't perfect. And I promise you, your plan is not perfect. I promise me, my plan is not perfect. But what happens is once we start with a plan, then we can figure out which of the things work well and which of the things we need to change or improve. And we keep going through that process. So it's a continually evolving plan, but it gives us confidence in performance that we've got something to fall back on. And I would say in the 7 auditions that I've won, I played a sum total of 0 of them perfectly. And not even close to perfect. In some of the auditions that I didn't win, I actually played even better than the ones that I won. The goal has been always, and we talked about this on Tuesday with Bob, the goal is to present yourself the best way that you can and put a plan in place for that to happen. And that's going to give you the best chance. But in all of those auditions that I played, there were always takeaways. Okay, so I prepared this in this way. That worked really well. I'm going to double down on that for next time. Well, this was the plan and I didn't do this. I executed it and it didn't quite work. So in which case I need to change it. Or as most of us do in an audition in performance, we set up a plan and then something goes wrong and we throw the plan out the window and we panic. And we go, okay, now I've got to produce the greatest version of this piece that anyone's ever heard. And you're like, well, why didn't you plan it that way? So sticking to the plan is a really key thing. But if you don't have a good plan, then you have a problem.
I am laughing because, yeah, I mean, that happens to a lot of us in lots of other things that we do in life. I make a lot of presentations for work and yeah, I definitely set up a plan and then oftentimes just go on the flow on the spot and start making it up. And that has a really big hit to your confidence too, right? And part of performing consistently is having the confidence that you've prepared well and you're set up and if you just follow your actual plan that you've created, it actually does build confidence and you're allowed to relax a little bit because you've already done that work. Now you're just executing. So it's one of the keys to the confidence building. So shall we move on to number 4?
Absolutely.
All right. So the 4th common mistake that we've seen here is musicians waiting for income to come to you. And I can stop sharing. I can talk a little bit about this one, but Andrew, I'm sure you've got thoughts yourself. So we talk about this a lot just as invested musician and in our course, but in general, that as musicians, you are essentially business owners because you're self-employed. And that means if you're freelancing or if you're teaching, you're earning income. That means, you're out there having to create income. And we can't really, well, you can sit and wait for, students to come to you or opportunities to come to you for freelancing, teaching, whatever. But there is another way where you don't just sit around, we don't sit and wait passively, but we can actively get out there and promote ourselves, showcase what we have to offer through marketing strategies or, I don't like the word advertising, but it's really more communicating to the industry and to potential individuals on what we have to offer. So Andrew and I talk about this in the terms of building bridges. So if you think about the people you want to connect with as different audience groups, you might have potential students as an audience group, or other peers of musicians who you might want to collaborate with. That's an audience group. Or contractors who book for freelancing and gigs. That's another audience group. So how do you build a bridge to show that they can see what you have to offer? So they have, a way to find you. If you don't build that bridge, if you don't put something out there, then people might not even know that you are available to work, that you have that, skill set and desire and need and want. And that's really the first step of trying to get new opportunities. So instead of waiting for them, if we build bridges and we actively put ourselves out there through a website or through social media or through in-person, building relationships, we can actually actively create income for ourselves. So that is the fourth point we wanted to make.
Yeah, I mean, I think, particularly now as things start to go back in person, and now we have this huge advantage that people are very comfortable with online interaction. So there are very few barriers for us now to actually build these connections directly with the people that we want to speak with. So, for example, if I was wanting to, let's say, I was wanting to connect with the principal horn of the Miami Symphony, and I was wanting to work, and I was living in Miami, and I wanted to work with Miami. I would be able to contact them and maybe have a lesson online, send them some of my materials, or if I was in the area, be able to actually reach out to them and connect for a lesson, or at least make them aware of my playing. So it's really important to remember what we see in LA at the Philharmonic is we get several resumes that get sent to the horn section. Say, I'm such and such, here's my experience, I'd love to come and play with you in LA. Well, that's great. Now we know about the person, but we are not going to hire anybody based on a resume unless they have a job in an orchestra that's of a comparable level. How we would hire them is if they played for the members of the section, or they played for me, or we heard them playing, we're aware of their level, then it would be very easy for us to say with confidence, yeah, okay, let's hire that person. We're happy to have them in the section. So yeah, it's important to make sure that you reach out and make connections, in a digital written way, but still the most powerful thing that we have is this in-person connection, and be able to show people, the skills that you have. And then it's also important to make sure that you maintain these contacts. So when, and this is with your teachers as well as, colleagues, student colleagues and other colleagues. If you had a gig with someone and it went really well, maintain the contact, follow up and say, we had a great time, it was fantastic, do you want to meet for a coffee some other time, or you want to get together and do some playing? Building these connections is going to put you in front of mind for them when, if they're looking for someone to hire next time, if they're a hiring person, or if they get another gig and they need to get a replacement. If you're at front of mind, that's going to help your potential for income.
Yeah. If you weren't able to do the email organization class yesterday, you can check out some tips there on even just marketing yourself with every email you send. So with a simple signature. So check that out. All right. So we'll go to the last one here, which is about staying organized. And I call it sort of the business side, but what we really mean is just all of the administrative tasks that we have to do to manage the career, to manage, you know, the relationships, the people, the, you know, auditions coming up, the opportunities, your financials, all of that stuff. I don't know about you guys, but as we started to put it all together, it was a lot. And staying organized, because there's so many, it's so fragmented. You know, there's like, we've got freelancing opportunities, and there's festivals, and then there's teaching privately, and then teaching through organizations. And all of that is needing to stay organized and managed. And then specifically the budget and the numbers that go along with those different opportunities, we need to keep track of. What was the income for that? What were all of our costs? One thing that frustrates Andrew and I so much is, over the years, we've, you know, obviously worked hard to earn income, as all of you are as well. And then we pay it to taxes, which is, of course, we need to do, we need to pay our fair share, but we don't really want to pay more than that. And getting educated on the tax laws and other ways to negotiate and save money has been, I think, a big part of our success. So after we work hard to create and push for income for ourselves, we need to make sure we're managing our budgets so that we're not, you know, spending at the wrong time, or we're not taking advantage of tax benefits that may be in our favor and giving away money unnecessarily. So that is the organizational side, and really having a good system in place. Like we talked about with email organization, kind of like what is our goal, what's our plan, what's the system that we're going to use, frequency of how we're going to check on it and adjust it, so that we know what's going on with our financials on a monthly or, you know, every few months basis. And if we need to make adjustments, we can. If we need to save up for an instrument, then we can. If we need to look at strategies to push income further, then we can say, oh, you know, hey, like our expenses are going up. We need to start looking at ways that we can increase income, and which income sources have been really good for me. I mean, while you may have a high income opportunity, it may also come with high expense. So you really need to look at what the take home profit is on opportunities.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, we talked at the beginning of this little segment on goal setting, and it, for me, this is where the goal setting it circles back, because once we've set our longer term goals, it's going to help us to make better decisions about, you know, the organization of our business side. So, for example, you know, how do we get to this goal of, you know, auditioning for the Berlin Philharmonic and being successful? Well, the priorities that we're going to set in our practice are going to be, I need to do 3 hours practice every day. That's going to be a priority for my time. And therefore, okay, well, I still need to make sure I've got enough income to live. But what are the other priorities? Well, I need to make sure that I'm developing, you know, my playing. So I need to get the best possible information I can. And I need to access that information. And then I also need to make sure that I've got time to be able to do all of this. So in terms of my income, I need to focus on what is the best sort of income that I'm going to get hold of. So it also helps as a freelancer, you know. And one of the things as a freelancer, when I was a freelancer in Sydney, my focus was I wanted to get a base income that would cover my rental costs. And the best way to do that for me was to develop a teaching studio. So I developed this teaching studio, which had great, you know, relatively speaking, really good per hour income, so that I could spend less time actually working, more time practicing, because what was my goal? I desperately wanted to win an audition so I get a job in an orchestra. That was my goal. So everything fitted into that. So I made sure that I didn't take a $50 gig 2 hours out of town that was, you know, was playing something that wasn't so interesting, because that didn't fit with my goals. I didn't feel as I was going to make the benefit artistically that I would, for the loss of, you know, amount of practice time that I would have. So creating this organization in your head about, you know, how can I maximize my income and how does this fit into my goals, and get organized. This is a really important thing.
Yeah, thank you. So let's just have a look at those 5 again. There they are. So you can, hopefully that all made sense to you, and it really ties into why we created our 5-star musician mastery method. I know it's a little bit of a mouthful, but and so let's talk through that real quick in case you didn't see that previously. So it really, everything starts with you, obviously being, you know, the artist, and you are, this is your career. But the 5 things that we see musicians needing to do well, and maybe Andrew, you can kind of talk through them and I'll click through for you.
Yeah, well, so I mean, obviously, it starts with us, but with practicing, you know, effectively. If we're not practicing effectively, we're not making the development, then, you know, then we're not going to be, you know, achieving the level that we need to do. So this needs to be a really focal point, and it needs, in terms of scheduling and organization, we need to keep coming back to this. Am I having the opportunity to make the growth and development in my practice that I can? And am I organizing that practice physically or technically, musically and mentally? And then is that feeding into being able to perform consistently? So if I'm not performing consistently, the first thing I'm going to look at is, how am I preparing my practice? Am I practicing in a way that is going to funnel me towards playing at a high level? And for me, performing consistently is always about simple, natural and repeatable. We talked about this in the 5-day challenge. If my practice method is not simple, natural and repeatable, when I get under pressure, when I perform, it's going to fall apart and I'm not going to perform well. So I have to go back and make sure I'm establishing habits and skills that I can produce at a high level under pressure. Yeah, and just making sure that I'm clear in my mind about how I'm actually structuring all of this. How am I prioritizing my time? And am I executing everything so that it's fitting in with my goal structure? Obviously, this, without income, you know, we're going to be running around in big trouble. So how we structure this is important. If we have a 40-hour-a-week job at Starbucks, for example, that's terrific because we've got solid income, but does that fit with our goals of being able to complete the quality of practice that we want to make the improvement that we want? So these ideas, this way of organizing your time, organizing your income is really important. So as a freelancer, teaching and high hourly paid things are going to be really good because it's going to give us the opportunity. And another important thing to remember with income is, as a freelancer or as a musician, we want to have income that's flexible with our time, so that if the Chicago Symphony calls up and says, oh, can you come in tomorrow morning and play a rehearsal with us, you're going to have the possibility to do that. You're not locked into a job where you actually have to be there and you say, unfortunately not. And then in the course that we're talking about and teaching over the summer, and we're just finishing the spring program, this real focus on making sure that, you know, we've got a clear plan for how we're going to do good auditions and win orchestral jobs, how we prepare for university positions and the application process involved there, and then making sure that we've got an understanding of an arts administration background. Having a job as a freelancer, having a job in arts admin is obviously going to be connecting us to the field that we want to be in, and it's generally going to be flexible. And as a freelancer, this is another useful form of income and knowledge that we're going to gain. Ripple.
Yeah, and so those are kind of the 5, you know, components that we see successful musicians all have in common, and that, you know, Andrew has experienced himself, of course, but and that's a lot of things. I mean, 5, it's not just, right, the playing the instrument component and practicing, which we obviously spend the majority of our time on, but the rest of that stuff is all sort of hanging there. And if we don't strategically and, you know, effectively approach that, we're missing out on some great opportunities. And it may be the difference as to why, you know, your career is not where you were hoping, or not as far as you want it to be financially. So, you know, it starts with you. We talked a lot, Andrew talked about the goal setting and how important that is. And also we feel really strongly about having a support network or a community of people who are, you know, behind you and supporting you along the way. So you have, because you're on your own, right? And if you're in a company or a business like I am, then I have lots of people, I have teams and teams upon teams. But in this industry, you know, unless you're an employee at an orchestra, you're kind of on your own out there, you know, having to do things by yourself and push things by yourself. So it's really important for you to identify a few people who can support you the same way that a company would, right, in a business sense, because as we talked about, there are some similarities. So that's our 5-star musician mastery method that we wanted to share with you. This is just a quick look at our website. You know, if you guys have enjoyed the workshop, we've really enjoyed putting it on for you, and we'd love to invite you to check out more information about our summer program. It's on our website, just there clicking program. Here's a little bit about what it entails. It's 12 weeks long. It starts June 1st through August 24th. And we cover all of these different topics that we've been discussing in this workshop, but also, you know, more. Andrew and I just spent, last weekend or 2 weekends ago?
2 weekends ago.
Yeah, so we have pre-recorded a ton of amazing content on all of these topics. So we have, you know, we go in a lot further depth, of course, and then we're both really big on worksheets and exercises and examples. So we have a lot of that in there, resources and reading material to help make sure it gets ingrained as you're working it through it. And then after the program, we are still supporting individuals through their implementation through a separate group that we have for our alum, which we care a lot about. So if any of that resonated with you and you'd love to learn more, then I think Dana's going to put a link in the chat. You can just schedule some time with us. We can just jump on the phone for 15 minutes and talk about where you are. It's completely free. So we'd actually love to just chat with some of you guys who have been really active in our events and get to know you better anyway. So, you know, if you've got some time, we can have a quick chat, and would love to hear about what you're up to and how we might be able to work together.
Yeah, and for those of you not maybe familiar with you know, with Invested Musician or with the program, we actually have 6 principals of the laphil make up our faculty, as well as Dinka Vlakovic, who is Europe's foremost mental training coach for musicians. We have physical therapy. We're working with Matthew Van Beesen in the arts administration program. Matthew Van Beesen is the former CEO of the New York Philharmonic. And Jonathan, they're both from the University of Michigan. Yeah, a lot of really interesting stuff. There's plenty of opportunity to perform in these classes and perform for other people other than your own instrument, which we feel as though is a really important part of the development. So it's definitely geared towards, you know, people who are wanting to move their career and their playing to a new level. Whether that be in a freelancing situation, whether that be in a, you know, looking at doing auditions, or, you know, you're auditioning for graduate school or colleges, or you're in that awkward sort of middle ground where you just left college and you're looking to, you know, to have direction and stability. So yeah, that's a sort of an overview of what we do. We've had a great time working with the spring course. We're currently finishing up with a little over 30 people. This week is the final week of the spring program. And we have a little special ripple. There's a special.
Oh yeah, yes, thank you. So I think we have about 8 spots left in the program where we're, you know, registration is limited, but we're for anyone who does enroll by the 8th of May, we're gonna invite you to a small elite group masterclass. So we'll be able to do that before the program starts as an added bonus. So we hope that will be, we think that'll be a really fun event, and hope you guys will consider it. And we will talk to you in the consultations if you guys decide.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for spending time with us.
Yep, thanks everyone. Great workshop, and appreciate you all being here. Talk soon.